Commission General Regulation 391, LCB temporary file. Commission may adopt regulation relating to revising provisions governing eligibility of the main draw if the application applied for the restricted non-resident deer tag draw. Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman and Commission, Maureen Hullinger from Nevada Department of Wildlife. I've been asked to present for workshop CGR 391. CGR 391 is a temporary regulation, and I'm going to define a little bit what a temporary regulation is. Rob's regulation was a permanent regulation. After the July 1, just prior to a legislative year, any regulations that come forward are in a temporary status. They don't go to LCB for polishing for language, which actually extends the time for review and approval. So as a temporary regulation, should this go forward and is approved by your body as a regulation, you will see this come back as a permanent regulation after the legislative session is done. Okay, now if it's not approved, then it's a moot point, but as a temporary, we have to bring it back after the session is closed as a permanent regulation change. So I just wanted to explain the difference between a permanent and a temporary. CGR 391 was brought about by a petition filed by the Nevada Outfitters and Guides Association at the June commission meeting. The commission at that time approved the petition to go forward with the language. I was tasked with to meet that petition, which was to allow non-resident hunters who apply in the guided draw the ability to apply in the main draw if they're unsuccessful in the guided draw or rejected. So to meet that language requirement, we have to amend language in NAC 502-4237. It's a pretty simple change. It's to eliminate section number 3 at the bottom of the regulation, where it says an applicant who submits an application pursuant to this subsection may not apply for a non-resident deer tag in the main draw in the same year. So to meet the petition request, we just eliminate that, and that would allow non-resident applicants out of the guided draw to be able to apply in the main draw for deer. So that's my presentation on the language. As to the county advisory boards, Elko County supported the change. Eureka, Carson, White Pine, Humboldt County, Washoe County, Lincoln County, and Clark County opposed the change to the regulation. And the Guides Association did submit a letter for support material also in support of the
how many counties was that? I got the list.
1 in favor, 7 opposed.
Thank you.
Now, if there's others, I don't know if Lander Nye or Lyon submitted Douglas, Pershing, Story, or Mineral. I didn't see any responses from those counties. So if they came in late, I didn't get to see them. So they'll have to speak up. So.
Very good. Let's have public comment first, and then we'll move on to the commission.
Mr. Chairman, we have 3 public comments. Henry Krenka first.
For the record, Henry Krenka, President of the Outfitters Guides Association. We've given everyone, I believe, all the information of the June meeting, and so I'm just available if there's any questions that there need to be answered.
Thank you.
For the record,
Mr. Vogel?
Hank Vogler. When you have so many tags in a unit that are for non-residents, there's a first draw for guides.
Correct.
And they pay extra for that.
Correct.
But it doesn't affect the number in that unit that is turned over to resident hunters. It does not affect that number.
The resident hunters are not affected at all by this. It's strictly non-resident.
Okay.
Only.
And is it for the whole state, or is it just for each individual unit?
Each individual unit has a quota, and when that quota is filled, then it's filled. And so
we went round and around about this Tuesday night at in White Pine County, and I just want to have better understanding and make sure I've got everything before I make any decision. Let's say there's
Okay, and we are asking specific questions from the Guides Association, 'cause
Yeah.
Maureen would have more stuff
Oh,
on the,
okay.
from the regulation itself and how it's,
okay.
and we'll have a chance to ask
I'm
her
sorry.
questions.
Go ahead,
But,
Henry.
you know, if it's anything from the Guides Association,
They want it.
that's what we're looking for. Okay, thank you. And then we'll have more public comment, and then we'll get back and have questions.
We have Mitch Bazzetti.
Bazzetti.
Mr. Chairman, I'd ask that Mr. Corner has his chance, and then could I follow Mr. Corner, please?
Sure. George Cormier.
For the record, George Corner representing Nevada Outfitters and Guides Association, and in 3 minutes, I can't cover the background, so we'll try to answer any questions the two new members of the board have. I just point out real quick that this was brought into law in the 1989 legislative session, and it was to help the guides have a viable business by setting aside a percentage of the tags, and it worked great. There was no great controversy. The only controversy that we had heard was that our applicants in the non-resident guided hunt then had a bonus point that they could carry into the main draw, and that's one issue that we need to address in this proposed amendment change to the Nevada Administrative Code. And that would be to insert language that would say that you only get one bonus point a year, and it's applied after the main draw or after the leftover draw, however that comes out. But the controversy started in 2004 with the Tolman lawsuit, and it generated lots of non-resident and anti-guide sentiment. And the commission action that took away our applicants' opportunity to apply in the main draw, there were very few of us. I can think of one guide, and that's Thomas Brunson in White Pine County, and that happened to be one of the two counties, White Pine and Eureka, that was involved in this petition, that was aware that this was even happening. The rest of us didn't know anything until we went to the draw for the non-resident guided hunt applications here in Fallon in 2006, and systems consultants told us, you're aware that your applicants are not able to apply in the main draw then? And we said, what are you talking about? And they explained it to us, and we've waited until we saw what the financial impact was and come back and ask you to please correct this. The statistics were brought into question at the Ely meeting, and it was pointed out at that time that the statistics were provided by systems consultants and the Nevada Department of Wildlife, and we believe they're conservative. But they point out that in the 4 years this has been in effect, that Nevada Department of Wildlife has lost $92,000 in revenue. The guides, in the last year, 2006, I believe is the year I used, we lost almost $500,000 in revenue that we could have generated if those applicants that were not allowed to apply in the main draw were allowed to apply. Thank you. Sir?
Is there a question? Go ahead.
Mr. Corner, when is the draw for the guided non-resident hunts performed?
A month early.
Right now, it's performed a month before the main draw?
Yes.
It's in March.
That's,
Okay, who else we have?
We have Mitch.
Mitch Bazzetti, guide and outfitter in Nevada, a member of the Nevada Guide Association. Mr. Chairman, thank you. I just wanted to make sure that we all understand that the economic value for guiding for the state of Nevada and the opportunities that we offer non-resident people, and the money that we generate for the state of Nevada, and the importance for rural Nevada, what guiding offers to rural communities, and it's a very big deal. And just stress that, you know, the money that we're going to revenue, it may be a smaller number of guys that we're going to draw on the main draw, but every opportunity we have sure does help out bring money and support our families and our businesses and our rural counties. So just wanted to mention that, and just to make sure everybody understands that any quota our quota for the guides draw strictly comes out of the non-resident quota, and no resident would be affected of any kind by what this regulation would change. Thank you.
That's all I have, cards.
I didn't fill a card for this item, but it brings up a good point. Gil Yannick, speaking for myself as a private citizen. The question that I hear here is that, yes, the guide had a client who didn't draw, and the client would not be able to go back in the main draw, so he loses that potential revenue. But we've also heard that there's never been any non-resident tags left after the main draw. So, yes, the department got a little bit less money for the standard resident rather than the guided hunt resident. But my question would be, other non-residents who buy the tags, if they've got an opportunity at a trophy animal, I wonder how many of those go to these same guides to seek their service because they have an opportunity of a lifetime. So I don't know that the guides lost totally. I don't see any numbers published by the guides as to the total number of clients they normally see, but they talk about losing it in the draw of the non-resident guided hunt, but how many did they pick up afterwards? I don't know the numbers. And if they could help us with that, maybe that would better clear up the picture.
Okay. Was there any other public comment? Seeing none, we'll proceed to close the public comment on this. Does the commission have any questions, comments? Mr. Vogler, followed by Mr. Macbeth.
Ma'am, for the record, Hank Vogler. Each one of these hunts, each one of these deer hunts, and this is all it's for, is the deer hunt. It's not for anything else. Is that correct?
It's a restricted non-resident guided deer hunt.
I'm going to ask you a bunch of
antler
questions
deer.
that I already know the answers to. I just want to get it on the record because we really went around and around with this Tuesday. All right. If there's a hunt and you have, say, like 1,000 tags, say, in the Shell Creeks, 113 or 111 through 113. All right. There's 1,000 tags. Then there is a percentage that is set aside for non-resident hunters. Is that correct?
Correct.
10%?
With the restricted non-resident guided hunt, though, the quotas are based off of the previous year's non-resident antler deer tags.
Okay.
And it's at 37, not to exceed 37.5% per unit.
Per unit.
Per unit. Management area unit. Right.
But the number of available tags for the residents is going to be the same no matter
Yes,
what.
it's all non-resident, yes.
All it's given is they have to pay for that guided draw an extra fee.
Correct.
And then anybody that's a non-resident can put in the regular deal, in the regular non-resident draw. So the only heartburn is really, do you carry that bonus point over to the next year, or do you get not a second bite of the apple, is the metaphor they're using over there? You'd actually get the third, because you would, if you didn't get in the guide draw, then you would have a bonus point and another chance in the second draw, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Now, with the bonus, I want to make a little explanation on a bonus point program. When you're unsuccessful in a draw, you earn a bonus point, which can be utilized in a subsequent draw. So if you're unsuccessful in the main draw as a resident or a non-resident, if there's remaining tags in the second draw, that point you've earned is utilized in that second draw should you make an application. So it's not just the guided. Turkey, spring turkey, if you're unsuccessful and if there's a fall turkey hunt for that hunt, if you apply in fall turkey, the point you earned in the spring is utilized in that subsequent draw for that hunt. So this is a program rule in regards to bonus points, because bonus points are tied to the category of species. It's not tied to the hunt. It's an antlered deer tag, so that's where the guided draw tags they're antlered deer, so they fall into that category of bonus points for antlered deer, which is that's why it's utilized in the main draw, that point, because it's in the same category of species for the bonus point program.
But the second draw, there's still a non-resident draw. How many people actually put in for that draw?
If there's well, you have the guided draw, you have the main
No, the
draw.
guided draw, set that aside. Now,
Okay, so you have the main draw.
The main draw, for non-resident.
I don't have the statistics for the main draw, but the
total group is what, 15,000?
total non-residents, well, the statistics they provided in June.
That's in new book.
Now, this doesn't have it either as the total non-residents for deer.
Mr. Vogler, while she's trying to get that number,
We didn't split it out.
I think we just gave the total non-residents, which is right around 15,000.
It's about 15,000. So
we're talking about
that's everybody.
probably a better chance of getting hit by lightning than winning the second draw. But it does give the guides an opportunity to make sure that they fill up. And I'm sure, like the gentleman said, there are people who get that second season late hunt in a unit that's historically produced trophy bucks. He better go get him a guide and make sure he gets it. Yeah, I understand that. But it's not a huge amount, but it is a revenue generator because there's part of it's not refunded and they put in twice for the same animal.
Yes, they can utilize the point they've paid for.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Anybody else? Mr. Pearl?
Yes, Maureen?
Oh, sorry. I previously mentioned
sorry,
Mr.
you're right.
Macbeth. My mistake.
Sorry.
And then we'll have followed by Mr. Pearl.
Oh, okay. I guess my first point is that everybody, and this, I'm going back to when I was on the cab and when the issue by the Eureka County Chad Bliss, the Eureka County cab brought up the petition to make the change that we are currently are dealing with. In other words, the change that brought about the law as it is currently. That it was a matter of the non-resident hunter who goes into this guided draw getting a second bite at the apple. That was one issue. The second point that they brought up is that it's just unfair to the regular Joe non-resident hunter. And so I just want to make sure everybody understands that that was the position that Eureka County had. And then the one question I have, and this is probably more directed at system consultants, is that I've seen two estimates, and I think a letter came out by the Guides Association, maybe questioning what Eureka County had put together, but there was a pretty wide difference between the financial impact of this, to the department. Pretty wide difference, and I was wondering if maybe system consultants can address that and give us some idea of what where we are on that, if they've actually crunched the numbers, because I think I saw a reference that the Guides Association that actually got their estimates from system consultants.
Mr. Sefton.
Don Sefton from Systems Consultants. Bear with my allergies here today. I don't know what's blowing in the wind, but something more than I'm able to handle. We provided some statistics on several occasions in response to specific requests, I think from George Corner and I think from Mr. Bazzetti, and there may have even been a third person. And those statistics kind of took on a life of their own in the sense that people imputed other values that we didn't put dollar amounts to, like what's the economic impact on the state. That isn't my number. I was asked again this year to take a look at it, and I provided some numbers in terms of that I could actually quantify. I can't speak to the economic issues. And so I looked at application fees, because if you had approximately 1,600 applications each year and you went down to 800, then obviously there's 800 or let's say you went down to 900, there's a difference of 700 times 10, there's $7,000 that you absolutely can put your finger on. I looked at the predator management fee, because there's $3 there, the predator control fee, and if you take that times 700 applications, that's a specific number. I also looked at potential license fee losses, which were not as high as I thought, because a lot of these folks do come back in the second draw and apply for other species. And typically they're trying to build bonus points anyway, so they go ahead and buy a license. So it didn't appear like there was a lot of loss to license fees themselves. I also looked at the PIW impact, because if somebody applies in the main draw and they have the opportunity to go for a PIW, then they're making an additional $10 contribution, and we put some value to that. And I gave some total numbers to that. I think in terms of actual application statistics, tags, then the final number I looked at was, what's the impact on selling the tag in the non-resident guided draw by selling it in the main draw? And there's a $150 swing there, because it's $400 in the non-resident guided draw. It's $250, the same tag, going to a non-resident. So one of the things that's happened is, because of the declining numbers, we don't always subscribe all of the tags available. There were many years where we sold all 400 tags, which is the maximum. There have been some years where 400 tags were not allocated just due to the quotas. And there were some years where 400 were allocated, but in several cases, we sold less than the maximum that could have been sold. Like if they allocated 370, we sold 330 or 340. And that appears to be as a result of the change in the rules. That it's just like, people ask, well, if you have so many tags available, how could you, and so many people who go without, how could you have leftover tags in a second draw? But the reality is, every year we have leftover tags in a second draw, in spite of the fact that half the people in the state, or 2/3, go without a tag. And it's just because of the choice of the areas. And you have the same phenomenon with the guides, that there's areas that are less popular and they go undersubscribed. We had cases of undersubscription even before the rule change. But on average, it was within 5 of the maximum subscription, and it's dropped off from that. So if you took, say, 20 or 10 or 15 a year and multiplied that by $150, that would be another component. And it seemed to me, what I came up with was around $12,000. I remember I gave numbers to it in terms of the actual loss to the department. And then obviously my firm is affected. And I should point out that I usually can come up here in good conscience, look everybody in the eye and say, I don't have a dog in the fight. In this case, we truly do, because when we run the draw, there's some fixed costs associated with it, as well as the incremental cost for each individual application that we process. And the fixed costs are there whether I draw one person or I draw 150,000 applications. And so for us, the draw is a money loser. It's pretty much always been that way, but it was close to break even when it was up 1,700 applications a year. I've been asked what's the exact cost. The last time I did it and came up with those numbers has been a number of years, and I should probably go through that exercise again. But it's a money loser, and it's been made more of a money loser just because of the fact that there's less applications in it. So in fairness, everybody should know I do have a dog in this fight. You know, at least I can be accused of having a dog in this fight. It's not something I'd go to war over, because it's not that much money, but it does affect us.
Do you have a total number? So the total number is 12,000? Is you're saying is that the impact?
It seems to me, I'm going to ask Gil Yannick. I think I sent him an email. He asked a question, and I sent him an email, and it seemed to me I identified about $7,000 in application fees, about $2,100 in predator control fees, which would be $9,100. And it seemed to me that when I looked at licenses, there were a handful that were affected. And I looked at PIW and I looked at the tag fees. It seemed to me it was 12 to...
All right.
Probable total impact to the agency of less than $15,000. Now, again, that's just fees that the agency used to see that they don't see now. That was my guess.
All right, we're going to have a couple comments here, and I'd like to mention that, I'd like to see if we can wrap this up here shortly, so we can have at least a half hour for the next item before we close up at 5. And we are going to have a shot at this tomorrow. If anybody has comments specifically that will change the language, proposing to change any language, we especially need to concentrate on that. First, we have Mr. Pearl, Mr. Lent, and then See if anybody else.
A couple of questions. First of all, Don, theoretically, what happens if you have, after all is said and done and the draws are all done, and you have excess non-resident tags left? What happens to them?
If there were, you're talking about in the main draw, if there's
I'm talking about any draw.
Well,
if you have
first of all,
tags
any tags left over from the non-resident guided, or I should say it in reverse, any tags issued in the non-resident guided affect the quota for the non-resident portion of the main draw. In other words, they come out right out of the units, and the biologists calculate the numbers of what it can sustain, portion it between resident and non-resident, and then back out the ones already taken. So basically, they're going to be issued in the main draw. I don't think we usually have non-resident tags left over. We've had some.
No,
but if there are left over, they go into the second draw.
That was my question, was
Right.
if they were left over,
Yes, they go into the remaining
then they would
draw.
go into the main draw for anybody to draw from.
Correct.
Okay. Secondly,
No, second draw, not the main draw,
second draw.
Yeah, the remaining tag draw, yes.
Right, I understand. Secondly, if this regulation didn't change, and we have the 48-hour rule, what would be the effect if you held the non-resident guided license or guided hunt tag draw at the same time as the other drawings
You mean
on you?
that you could apply for the non-resident guided, or you could apply for the non-resident tag, but you couldn't apply for both?
Well,
It would
the
all
way
be
that-
done in one draw?
The way that this is now written, that's basically the case.
I think there'd be some programming involved, but I think because we do some things in the non-resident guided that we don't do in the main draw. In other words, the main draw is really controlled only by quota for the unit, and the non-resident draw, guided draw, has three controls on it. One is by guide, one is by, in other words, no guide can have more than 30 tags. One is by total, none can be over 400 tags, and we'd have to have some way of allocating it between the two draws so that those tags came over. I think the bigger impact, and I couldn't begin to speak to it, would be the guide relationship and the contracts that they have to sign, when they have to do it, and trying to build that in place might be too late with putting it in a June or May draw than it is doing it in a March draw. But I really think the guides should speak to that. I don't think I could present their case.
But my last question, you wouldn't have any information as to how many of the guided tag applicants, if they were, or I'm sorry, the out-of-state non-resident hunter, that if he drew, you wouldn't have any idea how many of those actually then hired a guide after they were issued a tag, would you?
None whatsoever. I know that about 30 or 35 different folks each year, the majority of them being guides, purchase lists from us out of the main draw. So there's obviously some where they wouldn't buy the list, but I couldn't tell you.
Mr. Lent?
I just want to make a disclaimer. Anyone coming up on the microphone, Don's suffering from looks like acute adenoviral conjunctivitis then. So when you come up here, make sure you don't rub your eyes and wash your hands. It might save you from getting it because it's probably pretty contagious, but you'll be okay.
Please stay away from the podium, please, sir. Maureen?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to speak to Commissioner Curlow's question. I don't, there's one other concern moving it closer to the main draw. One of the things you have to remember is that the tags that are issued out of the guided draw are subtracted off the top of the regular non-resident quota when you do your recommendations in May. So that's how the recommendations come forward. Those are already removed, so what you see in May for your regular non-resident hunt is the remaining for the calculation that the game division has done. So I think that would be a boondoggle on trying to move it closer to the main draw also.
Thank you. Mr. Howell, and then maybe we can...
I've got a question.
One more and we'll go on.
Quick question.
I don't know if, Maureen, you could probably answer. At the present time, there's no way anybody can get 2 bonus points in a year.
Correct. You're only allowed 1 bonus point per calendar year, regardless of how many subsequent draws that you might apply for a category. So you may utilize that bonus point in a subsequent draw, but you still only have the 1 for the year.
So if we approved this and a person was able to apply again in the non-resident category, there's no way he's going to get 2 bonus points.
Only if you change the regulation in the future.
Thank you.
Okay, we had Mr. Cavan had a...
That answered my question.
Okay. We'll move on. Thank you. All right, we'll hear about this tomorrow. Let's, Mr. Stefton,
Take care.
you're next, I think, aren't we? Yep, you're up. Application Hunt 2010 Draw Report, Don Sefton, Monty Martin, Systems Consultants.
We have a slide presentation to make, and so I think Monty's got to clip his laptop into something that can display on the screen, and while he's doing that, and he'll probably need some assistance from the NDEP folks as to how to do that, I'm going to make an introduction. Years ago, I used to do this presentation myself, and 3 or 4 years ago, we started having Monty do the bulk of it, and we tag team on one aspect of it, and that's when we talk about our what we call the mea culpa. It's the mistakes that we've made, and I do that portion of the presentation. So once Monty is set up, we're going to have him make the presentation and explain basically what you see in your book until we get to the part where we talk about problems that we've experienced and what steps we've taken to repair those, and then I'll speak to that. I get the big bucks, so I get to get yelled at by you guys for the mistakes we made. We did discover, I made a presentation Wednesday night to the Elko Wildlife Advisory Board. I've, over the years, made presentations several times to Clark County and to Humboldt County and Lyon County and Washoe County several times, and Carson City, and also Elko before. And so we did one again this year, and in the process I discovered that there was a slide that was missing 2010 numbers on it. That was, I think, the PIW slide. And it's in your brochure, and it only goes up through 2009, the bar graph. Should have gone through 2010. There's several related slides that do have 2010 statistics. What you see on the screen today will be the corrected slide that you do not have. So if you do want that slide, I think Suzanne normally asks that I give her the PDF, the portable document, and she puts it up on the website so that people can download. So if you decide you want to have that page corrected, you can grab that.
Which page is that?
I'm sorry?
Which page?
Is it page 20?
I think once he gets the slide up here, I think there's one of these switches cuts off these lights on the side. I saw somebody turn it off from here earlier. If, one of them shuts off those first couple rows.
Got something up there now.
Yep. Yep, that's it. First time every time.